Right.
All right, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
There he is. I have to scan that. I like the way it was called a brief overview of the proposed school budget by Superintendent Dr. Christopher Harrison. I don't know if that pushes you right along or what.
No, we will be brief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, all trustees, and Mr. Schaffer. I'd like to just quickly begin by thanking the entire village for your continued support and partnership. We have a wonderful working relationship with everybody, whether it's Larry and the village staff, Joe, police department, everybody great. It makes our lives a lot easier. So thank you for all the support. As you know, this is budget season, and I got in the habit and enjoy coming in to see all of you just to do a very brief overview so you can get an understanding of where we are with our school budget and allow you to ask any questions that you may have. So this has been quite an involved process. As you can see, we've gone through a series of 8 public meetings thus far, where the board and communities had the opportunity to discuss different aspects of our budget. And in doing so, it has really been a thoughtful journey. Our work has really focused on trying to balance our priorities with student program, facility needs, thinking about the long-range impact of all the proposals that have been considered. But most importantly, we've been also looking at how we can have a balanced approach, and in doing so, focus on student needs, focus on the excellence in our schools, and to continue to move forward, but also trying to be responsible with the tax cap and maintaining responsible tax rates along the way. And I think this is a budget that certainly has achieved all of those goals. This budget does have some initiatives, and as I will highlight, not as many as we've enjoyed in the past few years because of financial constraints that we're facing related to the tax cap. But within this budget, we have the opportunity to expand some world language offerings at the high school. We're looking at our STEM program, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where we're able to expand a noteworthy program that we have there. It's received a lot of attention throughout the state for the work that we're doing. Continuing to support our teachers with a lot of professional development, and we are maintaining all of our programs. There are no eliminations. All of our extracurricular activities, all of our academic programs will remain in place for next year. We're also looking at addressing some technology needs that are costly. We think of one little thing, and the reason we mention one technology switch, a network switch, because it's $85,000, and it's necessary to make sure we can keep our infrastructure up and going. And one thing that grew out of our budget process was that we also identified a modified volleyball team in need. We already have, and modified sports are middle school sports, and volleyball is a female sport at the school level. And we had so many young ladies coming out that wanted to participate that we didn't want to turn folks away, so we're adding another team. Buildings and grounds is a huge focus for us this year, especially in light of our anticipation of breaking ground on all of our field projects this year that were related to the October 2014 bond. And in doing so, we're going to have enhanced maintenance of all of our athletic fields. We're actually going to be contracting with an outside service that's going to come in and provide a layer of expertise that goes beyond what we currently have in-house. At our lower Dow's field, which is used by our programs for practice, but also for many of our recreation programs, we're going to install an irrigation system on the field. We're also continuing making sure we're keeping up with our maintenance in our school buildings, painting, carpet, tile, supporting the infrastructure there, and purchasing a new truck. But at the beginning of this journey, we had a lot of challenges, and when we think about the tax levy cap that we face in our schools across the state, generally speaking, people think of it being a 2% tax cap, but in reality, it certainly is not. It is formula driven. It looks at CPI, which is inflation. It looks at the growth of our tax base, and it also looks at our debt service. So as most people in town know, we haven't had much growth in our tax base. Inflation is terribly low right now, so there's a good and bad with that, of course. But we've also been very responsible on the district front by actually reducing debt. We refinanced a lot of our debt, and because of that, when you run the entire formula, it is certainly not 2%. We're looking at a tax cap which is a negative 0.07, which means that the amount of money that we're able to raise through our tax levy is actually $37,000 less than the current school year. So you can imagine, with all of our costs that increase just like those in the village, it becomes highly problematic. So when we go through and look at our budget, we know that we're going to have growth. And you can see from that one middle column, there's very, very few new considerations. When we look at our budget to budget increase, we're only seeing a variance of 1.15%. And that's considering anticipated raises for folks that are contractual, looking at increases in utilities and healthcare costs. But we found lots of opportunity to continue to be efficient within the budget. But as you can see from this revenue slide, we're also very fortunate to receive additional state aid this year. And you'll see from the third line down, $615,000 in additional state aid. Some of that, I have to say, is new aid. About $350,000 is additional aid from Albany, but the balance of that is actually due to high-cost special education aid that we're getting that at some point in time may go away as those students graduate or their particular needs change. But that $615,000 was significant in offsetting what would have been a very large deficit for the school district. When we think about the impact now on our community and our taxpayers, it's always complicated when you think about the tax rate. So if we look at the middle section of this particular slide, if all of our assessments had remained the same within the school district, so that is Irvington, but that also, as you should know, takes in a part of Terrytown. If everything remained the same, we would have only seen a tax rate variance of 0.12%. But unfortunately, the assessed value in the community dropped, as you can see, as almost $1 million. And as a result of that shift, that 0.12% increase in the tax rate becomes an increase of 1.25%. So just a little illustration of the impacts for some homes in the community. Certainly those watching at home could do some simple math to take a look at what the increases would be. But if you have a home that's assessed at $250,000, those folks would see an estimated tax increase of $67. And the average home within the school district boundaries is approximately $803,000, and that home would see an estimated increase of $214. The one thing that we are proud of, and this is a little bit of circumstance here, but when we look at our trend of budgets over the years, and if we roll back the hands of time, those numbers were much greater than they are even today. But just looking back over the last 6 years, we're proud to say that it is the lowest tax increase that we've seen during that period of time, and it really points to our desire to not only continue to support our programs and make sure we're providing our students with great opportunities, but to make sure we're being responsible when we're turning to our taxpayers. So with that said, we have a budget hearing tomorrow night at the Board of Education meeting with opportunity for public come forward to make any comment related to the budget. There's another community budget discussion at the library on the 10th at 7 p.m. We'd invite anyone to come, and then of course invite all of our registered voters to come forward and vote on May 17th right up the hill at Main Street School from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We also have the election of 2 trustees that are running uncontested, but certainly we encourage everyone to come out and vote and have their say on the school budget. But thank you very much. I'd be glad to field any questions should there be any.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. We appreciate you coming in, and we try to get as many messages out as we can. I think this is obviously an important one since it's 60-65% of most people's tax bill. So I think it's a good use of, I guess there's only 10 minutes of our time. People can, hopefully more people are aware about the budget, about the voting. If they have any questions, they can email budget@irvingtonschools.org.
Very good, and we will quickly respond.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Great, thank you.
Have a great night. The next item is a report on Dogs on Leash pilot program from Recreation and Parks Superintendent Joe Archina.
We'll get set up here.
All right.
You didn't bring any props? I gotta go back out now to the field. Did any of you get a chance to look at what I sent out earlier today? I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. So, and I have some other information I can share. Okay. So, first of all, welcome to everyone. Good evening. Good to be here again, and hopefully we can move quickly and see what the next step will be here. As you know, we had a Dogs on Leash trial program at Matheson Park, which started back on March 8th. We actually had 32 days where we had an opportunity for those who signed up to bring their dogs on leash in Matheson. There were 41 residents who participated. That represented 47 dogs. We had several people who had more than one member of their family, 48. And we charged $25 a dog. Our revenue we brought in was $1,175. For our gate attendant, it cost us $1,680. There were other expenses, but I did not think it was fair to charge those expenses to this program because everything else we bought we can use or need in other areas where we allow dogs on leashes, for example, at Halsey Pond, in the Irvington Trails. So all of those supplies, whether we never allowed a dog in another day in Matheson, would still get used and go to good use. And in the beginning, not knowing how many people were going to be involved, I can tell you that I won't need to buy any doggy bags for quite a long time. We have good stock right now. We averaged less than 4 dogs a day. If you take out the days where weather really kept people away, we really averaged about 5 a day. No incidents whatsoever throughout the entire program. A couple of times, the waste was put in the wrong place. Most of the time, that was from people who were in the park when they shouldn't have been. The participants in the program could not have been more cooperative and have tried to do more to make sure that this went well. So I'm very grateful for that. As you know, we were open from 7:15 till 10 a.m. on the days we were there. We thought the weekdays on between 7 to 8 would be a time where people who worked a 9 o'clock job would have taken advantage and brought their dogs in, but it was actually the time that was least used of all of them. Again, I know this isn't a huge sample, but it's still something to look at. We actually only had 8 people throughout the entire 32 days that went into the park between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. The majority of the park users used the park between 8 and 9 and 9 and 10. Breaking it down by hour, we had 51 users between the 8 and 9 slot and 52 users between the 9 and 10 slot. The one day we opened from 12 to 3 because of the Eileen Fisher event. We had 3 people from 12 to 1, 3 from 1 to 2, and 2 from 2 to 3. The strange thing about it is the one slot that had the most use of any, I think we would have all thought it would have probably been a Saturday or Sunday. It actually was Thursday between 8 and 9 o'clock was the slot that had the most, was the most used or the most visited, and Sunday from 9 to 10 being a very close second to that. So there were a total of 53 visits on Tuesdays and Thursdays and 73 visits on Saturdays and Sundays. So, that's kind of a breakdown to it. We tried to make sure we were consistent. We probably had a little overkill because we didn't want to break from what we said we would do, put signage up, have someone there, because again, if there was going to be a negative recommendation, we really felt it was important to be able to back up what I would be saying here. For example, if I was sitting here tonight saying we had fights in the park every day, the dogs were out of control, nobody kept them on leashes, and someone said, Joe, you were not telling the truth, I would have had backup for all of that. Again, it wasn't. I mean, some of the participants even baked food for the dogs and the owners. So it was a very cooperative and a group that liked each other very much. Logan Bancroft, who's one of our part-timers, was there, and I think he's actually become friends with most of the people in the program. I know they all spoke very highly of what he did. So, RPAC has discussed this. We looked at it. We wished we had better weather and more use, because the one thing we didn't have was normal park users or large numbers of people who would have gone to the playgrounds or picnics or things like that. So we still don't have a 100% answer on how everyone's going to be together. So the recommendation that I'm putting forth, which is supported by RPAC, is that for the next 3 months, basically starting May 10th, because this weekend with all the activity down there, we won't allow dogs in this weekend. But 7 days a week from 7:15 until 10 a.m., that the park be open to registered participants of the program, no gate attendant on duty, unless it's a weekend where we happen to have someone working because of parties and things like that. But on the weekdays, there would be no attendant there. We hope to get support and help from the people in the program. And that'll allow us, by going 3 more months, a good opportunity to see how things mesh. Because there are people who are saying, we're not sure how it's going to be. I don't want to send my nanny down there. And for us, the good thing is, if it stays the way it is, the dog owners are in complete control of their dogs. Again, and if it stays that way, I think people who do have some concerns, it'll be alleviated. But I think we need to bring them together more. And now that permits are starting to kick in, and now that group events are starting to happen, going this 3 months and seeing what happens and giving everybody a chance to gradually see how this can work long term. If it worked after 3 months, then I think, again, we can take a look. Maybe we extend the hours further. Maybe we look at doing it a little bit differently, and then try to get until the end of the season, and then to really see how many people want to use it from November until March. Open it 7 days a week whenever the park is open. That, at that point, we should have been able to educate people to register their dogs and have all the information. The park gets less use in the winter, and the dog owners still would have plenty of days. They should have enough good weather to go down there and experience the park. And then we could see, does it create a lot of maintenance problems for us? Does it take a schedule change in the way our men are scheduled to go out there? So, again, as you know, with me, I try to do things gradually, because it's never as good as you think it is, and it's never as bad as you think it is, and you need a period of time to evaluate it, because not everybody who's against allowing dogs in the park, have come forward yet. It's my hope that by doing this gradually and dealing with problems as they come up, that we could work towards a long-term way of having dog owners and their dogs become more of a part of Matheson Park on a regular basis. When you consider we were nowhere, 3 months ago, and we've done this, and there have been some concerns out of the way, I think it's a big step. One of the things that I think is hard for the people who have asked us to consider doing more hours is we need time to go in there. I mean, we're not going to go on a machine and do our big cuttings in the park when people are in there with their pets. When you're on the big mowers, things get shot out from underneath. You've got to protect everyone, and we, again, still need a little bit of time to learn how to do that. We wouldn't do any of our applications while the dogs were in the park. So if I go longer, let's say in the morning, then I'm limiting when my guys can go in there. And the longer in the day you go, the more chance that the park is going to get more and more crowded, and the more difficult it is to do your maintenance. Plus, you've heard it a million times, but it just has to be said. We have so many things we have to do before the 3 o'clock period comes, in terms of field preparations and parks and trails and bathrooms and courts. If you shorten the period of time we have access to Matheson Park, that makes it very hard for us. There was some discussion I did hold a public meeting about 2 weeks ago to give the participants a chance to come in and meet with myself and members of RPAC, just to give them an opportunity to ask and see where we were going. And a lot of them had asked if we would consider more hours, night hours. And again, I think we could get there, but I don't think we should take that jump from where we were to extending more. I still have a park staff that's quite concerned about what this is going to do to them. Again, everyone in the program was great, but there's still going to be a lot of new people we feel coming in, And we're not sure how well they're going to fall in to do things the way we ask, to respect the park, to respect the rules, to respect monuments and things like that. So, I think it needs more time, but I think this is a very fair suggestion as far as moving forward. So happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
So I guess I'll just start. The proposal right now is to, starting May 10th, extend the trial for another 3 months, 7 days a week, 7:15 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure I knew.
Now, there will be days, unfortunately, as we go forward, where in our judgment, we're not going to allow dogs in the park. Examples are the May 14th Spring Fest with trucks and things going in and setting up. We're going to probably close the park some of those days, hours to residents. This Saturday is the police department sleepover in the park, so the next morning there are going to be 100 tents set up in the park. There's going to be days when we're not going to allow dogs in at all. And again, there are days we don't let residents in at all based on what the park is being used for. But the rule of thumb is, if it's a normal week, 7 days, 3 hours a day, and see what happens from there.
I know you said some people brought up evening hours, but if kind of the work's done by 3, why didn't you consider kind of some evening hours as a possibility?
Because we have no one there then if something happens or to watch. So it's 3 o'clock and everyone's gone. We're not worried about the people who sign up for the program. We're worried that when people see there are dogs in the park and there's nobody in there, that people aren't going to go and register. I think the one thing we learned here, which was interesting, and no disrespect to the people who participated in the program, but many of the people in this program had to wait to sign up because their dogs weren't licensed. And it's amazing, I think you're going to find that the majority of dog owners in Irvington's dogs are not licensed. And they need to do that. I need to be able to face a resident or face a mom or face someone who's going down there with kids and tell them that only people that are allowed in there are people whose dogs are registered with Greenberg, have a license, and they come in and sign up with us so that we know who they are. And we think that's important because we also think if people break the rules, that there has to be some kind of punishment for people who don't follow the rules or bring a dog in there that doesn't have its shots. I mean, we're going to be responsible for that. If someone goes in there and their dog bites someone, no one's going to want to know we were trying to be nice and let people's dogs in there. We have an obligation that if we're letting them in and we're saying they can go in, that those dogs should be, we don't let non-residents in the park because our rule is you need a park pass. Well, we don't think we should allow dogs in the park unless we can prove that they're registered, and they're registered also with us. So at night, again, there's less chance to watch. There's less chance to be there. If there are problems, I think we're going to get there, Brian. I think that's where it'll go. We think as a staff, and I think our PAC agrees, that it's too big a jump to do right now, that we ask for patience, that we ask to let this keep going gradually, because if we get to a point where it's going to be much more and it's going to be regular, we'll at least be able to say, hey, we tried this, we went step by step, we've got education for people, we've let them know what they should do, what they can and can't do. The dog park community, who's working well together, they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the work they did on the aqueduct a few weeks ago. They're working with us, and I know they want more, but my plea to them is, let us take these steps. It's not that much. If we're right and it should be in there, we're going to get there. Give us a chance to see what the interaction is when the park goes through a heavy seasoned use and you're in there with your pets, and let's see what happens.
So, Joe, you were talking about the evening hours. Part of the problem is not having someone there. So, but in the daytime hours, you were talking about not having a gate attendant.
Right, but I always have somebody close by. If we get a phone call, I always have someone I could send down there. Whether it's the park foreman or the laborer or a part-timer or an office person, I can get somebody down there. But I can't, when it's in the evening, it's a tough thing. And then the question is, how often do we want the police to be involved with this? If you see a dog in there, let's assume you agree to what I'm suggesting. If a dog is in there after 10 o'clock, we know they're not supposed to be. And I think it's all part of people have to follow rules. And sometimes people think they should be entitled to us bypassing steps, and we don't. It is very hard to maintain a park system with what we have available to us. No matter how much people would like to think this is easy and it's cut and dry and just let it happen. When you take the whole scope of what we're responsible for, and something happens where I have to pull 1 or 2 guys into that park and they're not supposed to be there, it changes what we get done during the course of the day. How much overtime are you willing to have me spend because dogs in the park created a problem for us? I don't think we want to spend any extra overtime on that. So I think it has to be an education, a constant education, to let everybody understand, you want this, you have to help us. You have to follow rules, you have to make sure other people who are told they're not doing it the right way.
So you had no, because of the way it was set up, you had no one coming in that hadn't signed up?
There were about a dozen people throughout the 32 days who came in and were told they couldn't. A few of those ended up becoming participants in the program. A few of those wait till the gate attendant leaves and try to sneak in. We get a lot of people who own dogs who work at Bridge Street property who just come in, take their dogs off the leash and let them run. We have to deal with them on a constant basis, and it's a waste of our time. So one of the things we're doing as a department in RPAC is we are studying all the codes that impact recreation and parks. Michael Smith of RPAC has been assigned to chair the group. Michael's an attorney. We're looking at everything. We think there has to be some penalties, whether it's dogs off leash in the woods, whether it's dogs off leash at Halsey Pond, whether it's dogs that aren't licensed being let go. We think there has to be something that the police department can use if they need to issue a violation or a summons to someone. Right now, there's really not much the police can do other than get the people out of the park for us, if the dog is on a leash. If the dog is off a leash, that's a different story, because there is stuff in the code which allows them to take action.
And the geese?
Well, I've got a new proposal today that I got from a company, Sleepy Hollow and Dobbs Ferry. I've used the company who's got an interesting approach to helping with the geese. I shared it with, I know Larry and Christina and Brian today. We're still working with them. I'm hoping that the money that's in next year's budget to use for the geese control company will be transferred to this company. They have an interesting method of dealing with geese. Does anyone know what part on a goose's head, what a goose does not have on its head that we do?
Hair.
Eyelids. They can't blink. So they've got these lights that they put in at night, which totally confuses them. And because they can't blink, they can't get the shine out of their eye, and they get pretty ticked off and they go away. But it's a broad approach to getting rid of the geese. Well, did the dogs help with the geese from 7 to 10 on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday? Yeah, I'd say they did. But I also think the geese waited until 10:15. That came in.
And they don't have permits.
Well, I have a little bit of a comment too. I think the evening hours issue that Brian mentioned and Mark was referring to is one that I underlined when I was looking at all the correspondence and thinking about this too. And you know, I so respect what RPAC's time has been in this, and I'm certainly haven't spent the time and analyzed it, but I'm just going to ask you a question based on my little bit of knowledge and talking to people. And I wonder if that time period, we've heard so often how the users of it are very good enforcers of the rules because they want to protect the program. Is there any chance that in those evening hours, what this was one suggestion, such as 5 to sunset, Monday through Friday, if some arrangement with the current responsible users couldn't be worked out for those time periods?
The answer is, it is possible. We still think that that's maybe the next step, because we really would like to see how dogs and large numbers of people in the park work together. We don't know that yet.
So
Again, I know we're asking you, we know that that's something that people want. Do I think the dog park community can be a big help to us moving forward? They have to be, Because if they're not, the park's not gonna look very good. And during the trial, it's kind of hard, because the only people they had to police during the trial was themselves. It's the people who've been waiting to see if we're gonna do more. It's the people who've been waiting to see if we're gonna do it 7 days a week. It's the people who didn't wanna go get their license in Greenberg until they were sure it was worth them doing. So, again, I don't know what's coming. I don't know how many people it's going to change. Look, I'm going to overestimate it and hope I'm wrong, and that it's easier than we expected, like this was. This was easier than we expected in many ways. But there was still a lot of time and a lot of resources that had to go into this.
So that's obviously on your mind. You realize that's a
Yeah.
strategy. You talked
Absolutely,
about it, all of
absolutely.
you.
Connie, I can
Yeah.
see if the 3 months work, if you approve it and we go with this 3 months, I could see that the extension where we go from, let's say, August until October, if things keep going well, that could be maybe the next part of the step until the winter, when I think it's a good year to try. I think now's the time. Let's open it up 7 days a week in the winter when people have options, and let's see what happens. Let's see what it does to the park. Let's see if, it's not as, problematic as we think, as my staff thinks it could be for them. So again, what you're saying is the obvious next step if the 3 months and the interaction goes well.
Right,
That still would leave August, September, and October, great prime times for people to be able to do that.
And I assume, again, you've thought hard about 3 months as opposed to the middle of July, or like July 10th instead of August 10th, that you feel you need the 3 months, not up till July.
Well, I honestly, I would have come here and said 1, but out of respect for the group, because they deserve, a little bit more, instead of having to always think, do we have to come back again? Is Joe going to change his mind? I thought 3 months was a fair,
The group meeting of
the
the
members,
the dog
the
group,
pride,
not okay.
after all we did, now you're going to give us a month, gee, thanks a lot. So it was what I thought they would have reacted to it, which is why I felt 3 months was a fair window during what will be our busiest time in the park, May, June, and July, and then after that, September becomes the next one. It is a prime time to see how things go.
I brought it up not as a cut things off, but assuming, which I guess I'm assuming, that it will go well, that it would be the chance to expand and try this, perhaps this 5 to Sunset starting in July instead of August. Just something to think
Yeah,
about.
if in the interim it goes great and you want to expand it, I bet they won't want to come back if you say you're going to expand it.
Right. I don't think there'd be much objection.
So,
The other thing on the price, just so you know, what RPAC agreed to is participants who signed up paid their $25.
They just-
They're now paid
Yes, of
through
course.
the year,
Right.
and then anyone else coming in would be charged the $25. We're not looking to make money. The $25 going forward is almost, because it does take time for us to do the registration, to collect the data, to share it with everybody. And we want it affordable enough because we want people to do the right thing. We want to make sure if there is an incident with a dog and a person, or a dog and a dog, that we have the information.
No,
You know?
I
So-
totally agree with you on the
And there are a lot of
safety.
people who have found that the process to get the permit is not as, it's not that quick. It takes some effort to get it. So-
I was fairly surprised at one of those first meetings when the number of people who never realized they were supposed to register their dogs, and that was. kind
One
of
other
shocking
thing,
to me.
because I've had a
They know now.
I've had a couple of comments, and I just want to make sure, because I know that there was some correspondence, and I think there's a misunderstanding about Scenic Hudson Park. Scenic Hudson River, which owns 52 parks up and down the Hudson, does not have any park where dogs aren't allowed other than Scenic Hudson Park. And that is a true statement. It has nothing to do with Matheson Park, it has to do with parks owned by Scenic Hudson River. However, the difference between the other 52 parks, the other 51 parks at Scenic Hudson Park, is no other park that's in the Scenic Hudson arsenal has ball fields. None of them. So, and when Scenic Hudson was developed, because it's such a ball field and sports-oriented site, dogs were, from the very first meeting we ever had, and I was there, were never a consideration for that park. And then the problem, just being a little selfish for a minute, if people cause a problem in Matheson Park and they're a resident, hey, we work for you, we gotta take it, we gotta deal with it, we gotta try to fix it. if you opened it up or Scenic Hudson was available, now we're dealing with dogs of every single person from everywhere. And the time now that we have to spend there is going to take away from somewhere else, you know?
Gotcha.
I think this is very well thought out, and I think given the concerns, the real concern is you're about to come to the time when there's going to be kids and dogs at the park at the same time.
Right.
I think giving it time to see how that works out, phasing it in, and giving your staff time to be reassured that this can work makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think this is a very good plan.
I appreciate that.
I agree, and say, the other thing I consider is, if you get 6 weeks in, and you think it's going as well as the trial went, maybe you add an hour here or there,
I
or
would-
try a Friday evening
If,
or
if
something.
everything is going great and we see those numbers come in and we're getting what we want, there's no reason I wouldn't come back sooner, because the happier I can make that group, that's, then it's next, and we could be off of this.
They'll let you out of the doghouse.
Yes, they'll let me out of the doghouse.
I do appreciate all the time that RPAC, the Irv Dogs Group, and you and your staff, Joe, have spent on this. I know I'm a big dog advocate as well, so I'm really happy to see this progressing. Hopefully in a year from now, we can talk about what a great success it was. So.
Yeah.
And it's been a great success so far, so I appreciate all the hard work, and look forward to hearing more success stories on this.
I appreciate, and again, I appreciate RPAC's help, my staff, and mostly the members of the community who've been part of this, being patient, understanding, and, letting us get through this the right way, Next year we may laugh when we said, we don't let dogs in the park at one time. So, we'll see what happens.
Very good.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, Joe.
We have quite a few announcements tonight. The first, looking forward to the end of the month, is Memorial Day ceremonies and parade. We'll be on Memorial Day, which is Monday, May 30th, at 10:45 a.m. Starting at the Main Street Memorials. As most of you know, there's a parade from the memorials down Broadway, up Main Street, down Broadway to Memorial Park, where the second part of the ceremony happens. Looking even further afield to June 19th, there's the Celebrate Irvington Day. I don't know if you want to say anything on it, Connie, or we'll have more to come.
Look for this artwork pretty soon around town. This is a small version of it. But we'll have these little cards in restaurants. We'll take them over to Lyndhurst. This shows the information about that June 19th day. And it's Father's Day, and it's bring your father to the trolley, come to Irvington. Who knows, eat a lot, walk a lot. But the other thing that we did in reference to this is meant as a Main Street focused thing. So we've done periodically, we've taken all the restaurants, eateries, delis in Irvington, and we've updated a list of them, because a lot of this impact of this day is to support the local businesses. So you'll start seeing, if you go on the website, you look in the glass case, you'll see these lists when people, you all know. But, if people are coming to town and they want to know, where can we go? Where can we go? This is it. For your local business.
Can I add two things to Connie's?
Absolutely.
Slow Down Irvington will have Rip Van Winkle available to take snapshots. Stick your head through a hole. I think it's going to be Rip driving a VW Bug, so it should be a fun picture opportunity. But I also going to give you a preliminary announcement for something that should become officially announced later this week. The Traffic Committee is organizing and sponsoring a video contest for middle school and high schoolers to produce a Walk Safe Irvington PSA, public service announcement. And it can be anywhere from 5 seconds to 60 seconds long. And there'll be prizes and all that. That's going to start sometime this week officially and go through until June 19th, June 10th. June 19th, Celebrate Irvington Day, is when the winners will be announced, and we'll have a screening of the selected PSAs. So it should be pretty fun.
Excellent.
And Janice has been working with the school to help get more kids
We're
involved.
looking for any kind of talent, music, singing, poetry reading, juggling, dancing, whatever. Graduation is the day before. This weekend has been designated by the state, so it's a kind of a tough time. So this would really be, though, any kid who's in the school who wants to participate. It's a free venue to get heard, seen, get some publicity, and participate in a wonderful day.
Sell lemonade.
So Chris and the high school principal, Dave Cohen, have been helping us with those efforts to get the kids to participate.
Spread the word.
I think I have about 8 more announcements. So
Go.
the boring one is that there were 2 checks for over $25,000 for our policy. One was for Hitachi Consulting for $39,913, which was related to the microgrid project. Another one was for Tom Bucci Excavating, which was various projects, mostly for the water department, but one for the DPW as well, totaling $32,806.25. I guess that was 6 different jobs that totaled $32,806.25. Additionally, this Friday, May 6th at 7:30 p.m. is the latest As If, which stands for the All Shorts Irvington Film Festival. This one is the lens that can't shift, filmmaking through women's eyes. If you're like me and you don't like to sit through long things, this is perfect because the movies can be anywhere from a minute to probably about 25 minutes. The last one sold out, so if you're interested in going, tickets on the website. It was actually asiffestival.com. I think you can also get a link from the Irvington Town Hall Theater. Tickets are $15 general admission and $35 for above the line, which includes admission, reserved seating, and a cool piece of swag. I think I have a T-shirt and a bag for the first 2. But it's a fun night.
The cheap seats.
It's a fun night. As Joe mentioned, it's a very busy weekend. The Saturday, first, the River Keeper Sweep is this Saturday morning, May 7th. Volunteers with Parks Department support will clean areas at Scenic Hudson and Matheson Park from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I guess you can bring your dog. You just have to leave a little early. The Irvington PBA will be holding their second Hudson River Sleep Under the Stars event this Saturday night, May 7th in Scenic Hudson Park. Over 100, children are signed up to be part of the fun event. This is important. Matheson Park will be closed to the public from 5 p.m. On Saturday until Sunday, April 8th at 10 a.m.
May 8th, I'm sorry, that was a typo.
Oh, yeah, May is May. That's right. Can't go back in time. Thanks, Joe. Glad you're here. The Irvington Woods Committee is excited to announce Celebrate Spring event at the O'Hara Nature Center this Saturday, May 7th, from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Families will be able to make Mom a great Mother's Day gift of either a flower box or an herb garden, 1 box per family. It's limited to the first 40 families, so get there early. In addition, the day will include a live animal demonstration by the Greenberg Nature Center. There will also be tours and hikes led by members of the Irvington Woods Committee. And finally, there'll be a tour of the Irvington Gardens. Please join us. You can contact Maureen DePauli for any questions. And looking forward 1 week out to May 14th, the FACE Committee is putting the final touches on Springfest, which will be in Matheson Park. There'll be music, clam bake style food, kids attractions, zip lines, bull rides, volleyballs, canned jam, cornhole, and much more. In addition, they'll be selling beer and wine. Please support FACE and come out and have a great time. Please note all of the bands are local, so it should be a fun day. We'll be sending additional blasts. I know there's information on Facebook as well. Did I miss anything here? Oh, yes. It's staring at me in the face. I guess April 8th was the end of his term, is that right? So as of April 8th, which I guess we're not that late, but Chief Cerrone ended his, I guess it was a year, as the president of the Westchester County Chiefs of Police Association. As the name says, it's all the police chiefs are members, and he was the president for the last year, so it's pretty prestigious, and he gets a nice plaque, and I get to play with it. So congratulations, Chief. Thanks for all the work. I'll give it back to him now. I think that is it for announcements. So if anybody else has any up here. Busy week. So we will go to correspondence now. The first is from Douglas McClure. Dear Brian, I wanted to send out a quick email to you and others on the board regarding recent ARB decisions on solar panels. I should start off by saying I'm very impressed and pleased with the current makeup of the ARB. The new members, in combination with the remaining members of the old board, are thoughtful and intelligent about what they have been tasked to do, and in general, I've been very impressed with their process and decisions they've reached. That said, I am concerned with their approach to solar panels, specifically locating them on roofs that face public streets, a situation which they have rejected a few times over the past year. While I fully understand the aesthetic concerns the majority of the ARB members have regarding these panels, in this instance I believe that function needs to trump form. It is almost irresponsible in this current environmental climate to not be encouraging alternative energy development. Indeed, throughout Europe, on buildings older than ours, there is no question as to using solar panels. As a member of the IHDC, the Irvington Historic District Committee, this issue has come up multiple times, and I've consistently voiced my opinion that solar panels should be exempt from restrictions and encouraged. I've also mentioned this to both Deb Hargraves and Andrew Kotchin, who are ARB members. I'm not sure what the BOT can do to address this issue, but I believe that some encouragement from the top does help to influence how decisions get made down the line. Like it or not, our climate is changing. We need to be more proactive in finding ways to reduce those things that do not negatively affect it. Solar is obviously not going to solve everything, but it's a step. The more we have encouraging the use of the technology, the better the technology will get, and the better chance we have of discovering new and more effective solutions to the challenges that face us. Thanks for your time. Best, Douglas McClure. Related to that, we are planning next Wednesday's work session to discuss additional and enhanced solar code, I guess, right? In there.
Solar code.
Model, so sounds better. The next one is from David Rubin. Again, this one's kind of, at the January Board of Trustees meeting, I specifically asked that the no vote by the Board of Trustees be final. This is about Brightview. No answer was provided then as per procedure, but my fears are coming true. No means no. He basically said, this was before our last meeting with Brightview. He wanted to, if we said no, that they would go away. I think that's happened, so get that live for tonight. Next is from Barbara and Jim Casey. Dear Mayor Smith and Board of Trustees, like everyone else in Irvington, we recently received our preliminary taxable assessed value and subsequent tax liability figures from Tyler Technologies in the town of Greenburgh. Their new assessed value is 316% more than that of the full assessed value of our property in 2015. Projected taxes are 272% more than in 2015. If those numbers stand, we are going to have to put our house on the market immediately because we cannot afford to pay those kinds of taxes. We could not possibly have planned for such an extreme reassessment. My husband and I feel the town of Greenburgh has us in a catch-22 situation. The new six-figure taxes make the house unsellable at a price even close to what the market will bear. Realtors are reluctant even to show the house with the tax numbers attached to it. They feel it is a waste of their time. One realtor told me that the assessed value is roughly 2 times more than what she would recommend our listing be. Even a buyer willing to gamble on the tax rate would be reduced to reflect the sale price would want some assurance that the tax would be reduced at the year of sale. I'm sure you remember the packed audience in Irvington's recent town meeting. You see how many of them were over 60? For people like us, our largest asset is our home. I know from your letter of April 13th, your purpose is to not promote foreclosures, to throw older people out of their homes they have cherished, to destroy that money they may have tucked away for retirement, and to make their homes unsellable. But that is exactly what is happening. My husband and I are 82 and 72. This assessment was a shock. Without going into the particulars of our situation, I would urge you to consider for seniors who have lived in their homes in Irvington for many years, imposing any reassessment on their homes until after they have been sold, and then put a cap on the tax rate so that these people can sell their homes. And that was from Barbara and Jim Casey on Ardsley Avenue West. Obviously, at the end of the day, Greenburgh is the only one that controls the reassessment process. This board, in different groups of members, has been supportive of reassessment in general. This board recently wrote a letter to Greenburgh saying that we were in favor of a 5-year phase-in. Greenburgh has recently voted that proposal down. Greenburgh has requested a 3-year phase-in only for people with increased taxes. They are now in the process of, I believe, writing up that legislation, which they would have to present to our state legislator and state senator and eventually get it signed by the governor. This board has been in favor of that. We're frankly in favor of anything that will offset these steep increases. A 300% tax increase is a pretty good example of kind of the worst of what's happened after 60 years of no reassessments. I think unfortunately there's only so much we can do as a village. 80% of our taxes are not village related. We actually have given up our assessing power as well. We did it mostly to save money and because it was frankly better for residents, because if they had to grieve with Greenburgh, they'd have to come grieve with us, and it was an extended process. So there's many reasons we gave that up, and frankly, it wouldn't really help that much anyway in this case. But I think it's just, this board is definitely open to whatever we can do to help. Last Wednesday, I met, well, first with a group of residents that have done analysis of homes in Irvington School District, and they identified, a group that they thought were overassessed and a group that they thought were underassessed, which we sat down and presented to E. McCarthy, who is the town assessor, as well as Paul Feiner. They both did seem very, very receptive to reviewing the work that we did. One resident, Brian Friedman, has done dozens of hours of analysis. I think they were very impressed by how thorough he was. We said we were disappointed that the monitor hadn't done similar work, but they did agree, at least for the Irvington portion that we identified, to review them with the monitor, with Tyler, and with the state assessor that came down and kind of blessed the valuations. So that's kind of one way we're doing it. I've met with Sunnyside Bank. Paul Feiner's met with 4 or 5 other banks about looking at ways that people who are, again, facing large increases, if there's something that can be done to facilitate loans, whether they're kind of reverse mortgage or home equity loans, traditional home equity loans, that can bridge people over, because I do think that the one good thing that's coming of all of this is that they're not going to wait 60 years again. They've, I think by legislation, committed to doing it at least every 5 years. And talking to Edie McCarthy, the assessor, they're going to be looking at this on a rolling basis. So I do think that if you live in a neighborhood that suddenly saw a huge increase and you're afraid that when people start selling it's going to come down, they are going to capture that. You're not going to have to necessarily grieve to prove that your house isn't worth what they said, but it's going to happen intra 5 years, which I wasn't aware that they monitored that quickly or that closely intra year. So I'm hopeful on that. I am more hopeful than some people that the state legislature and the state senate and the governor will sign a bill, because it is just focused on Greenburgh. It's not statewide, so it can be very, very focused and it won't have impacts elsewhere. So I think I'm more hopeful than some people are that the state will actually act. We don't have a ton of time, but I think we have enough time. We might even have 2 different sittings of the legislature to get it passed, which I think is good. That's kind of my update. I know my other board members feel fairly strongly about this as well. So.
Yeah, I guess it's not comforting to people who are in trouble. I mean, there's no way to make people feel comfortable in a crisis, but for what it's worth, I and Brian and others have been paddling like geese under the calm waters. It doesn't look like much is happening, but we're very, very concerned. These are property owners and residents that we care deeply about, and it's from way back in '09, I think it was, when just Brian and I were on the board at the time, but we spoke up then and said, yes, we support reassessment, but always with a phase-in, never all at once for that kind of pain. So, yes, I think an important piece is to do redundancy, do as many things as possible that are solving the problem, ways to solve the problem. Think of what they all are that are, ethical, moral, legal, practical, that could help this. So, for myself, I think contact with Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Tom Abenanti in the governor's office. This is to understand that proposal that you can read on the Greenburgh site. It was last Wednesday night, I guess, that Greenburgh passed that, and we need to follow that as one possible solution, which could be a significant one. But if people have ideas that are solving the problem and are thinking outside the box of something that might actually work, practical, legal, possible, ethical, all those criteria, I personally would like to hear it. We want to make something happen, and it has to happen before April of 2017. So. Nothing that, and again, we think about all the residents. It's not, we obviously are concerned of people who have paid higher taxes for some 20 years. And, you don't like it to be, neighbor against neighbor in any way, shape, or form. That's not who we are. So, that's just my observation of this.
I think that one of the differences that it's important to understand the difference between the two plans. The 5-year proposal is a phase-in of the assessments. What Greenberg is pursuing now is the 3-year phase-in of the tax increases. So the assessed value, the new assessed values would go into effect right away, but there would be a phase-in of the tax increases. So there is some reason, and I agree with Brian, to hope that this might move forward, and but there would have to be new legislation passed to put that into effect. All we can do is support Greenberg's effort on this, and as Brian and Connie have said, anything we can do, any creative thing we can do locally, we of course will try and help.
So just to add a different data point, because I think everything that's being said is good and agree with, or think it's necessary discussion and action to take. My only concern is that I've heard a range of stories, from happy stories to annoyingly, anger-creating stories in terms of residents' interaction in the process of trying to get their assessments re-examined, going through Tyler and through the assessor's office. So it's not all smooth sailing on that area, and I think that another way that we can help the process is to somehow monitor. I don't know how we know unless people are telling us. I guess the Tyler angle is done at this point, right? I mean, I think the schedule of meetings with them is over with. Now it's going directly to the assessor's office.
Might be.
I think people have to have made their appointments, but the appointments may still be going on.
So I guess my point is that, like I said, I've heard a number of stories on either side of the fence as to whether, successful or not successful, listening to the reasonable arguments or not. So I'm very concerned about that process isn't just like being used, for want of a better word, as a snow job.
I do think that from my interaction with the assessor's office is they have been very open to trying to get this right. That was my message to them, was that if we, after 60 years, we just shift the under-assessed and over-assessed, we haven't really accomplished anything. We wasted a lot of time and money and created hardship.
And created a new set of tax grievances.
Exactly. So, and I think they got that. I think it was obvious to me that they agreed with that, and I think that if someone feels like they're getting the runaround, that's something I can help advocate for. But I really don't think that if you talk to the assessor's office, you will get the runaround. I can't speak on behalf of Tyler. I don't know much about their process, and I know that they're a hired gun from Texas or whatever. But Edie's going to be there, and her staff is going to be there. So they seem very willing to work with people, and I haven't heard bad stories on that case. I've heard Tyler's been dismissive and things like that, but hopefully when we get through Tyler and we get back to Greenberg, they're as responsive as we want a local government to do.
Yeah, I've only heard one specific story about the assessor's office, so it's not enough information to know if that was just an anomaly. But one thing that can be said from the Tyler point of view is it sounds like they really did not get, studied up, did not study up on their municipal zoning, constraints in terms of focusing on taxable properties, buildable versus buildable properties. So that's taxable lots versus buildable lots. So that's the major area of discrepancy, I think.
And hopefully that can be fixed systematically as opposed to having to fix it one by one. And that's what Edie told me in the meeting that she was looking at now. Either neighborhoods that were kind of, every house in that neighborhood seemed over by 20%. And you can't make head or tails, but maybe there's something in the algorithm that overcounted the proximity to, the train or whatever it is. But, she highlighted them, and she said she was going to meet with them later that day or in the week. So hopefully we see some of that.
That would be, if there was a systematic correction of some of that stuff, it'd certainly help residents. I mean, in terms of, rather than having to do the one by one.
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say on that in the future. But on to the next one. Something nice. Dogs. This is from Alan Richardson. My name is Al Richardson, and I reside at 31 North Dutcher Street in Irvington. Several months back, we started a group called Herb Dogs, or the Irvington Dog Owners Group. The group now has over 120 members, so I'm going to try to speak on behalf of those 120 plus residents of our village. We are very pleased that the Recreation and Parks Department created the pilot program allowing access for dog owners and their pets in the parks. As you know, this program was spawned by the search for a dog park location within the village. We are grateful that Joe Archino recognized during the dog park discussions there's a real need for active recreation space for dog owners and their dogs in the village. Many thanks to Joe and his staff, as well as the Recreation and Parks Committee for working with us to find a solution. Over 40 residents signed up for the Matheson Park pilot program, and we hope all agree with us that it's been a huge success. Not only have dog owners had the chance to partake in exercise in the village park with their dogs, but Matheson Park has also been reinvigorated during hours when it was barely used in the past. We are sure you will hear that dogs drive the geese out of the park, and hopefully someone will explain that they haven't had any problems during the pilot program because dog owners naturally self-police when they are allowed access as an organized group such as ours. But what we'd also like to point out is the Dogs on Leash program has created a responsible and engaged community within our village. And that is a very good thing, because along with the community comes understanding and acceptance. We strongly urge you to foster it and allow it to expand. The idea of expanding the program to 7 days a week with the same hours has been suggested as a possibility. As a group, we would like to point out not only 1/3 of our group has been able to participate in the pilot program, that only 1/3 of our group has been able to participate in the pilot program, and that is largely due to the limited hours. As a second step in the pilot program, we urge you to expand the morning hours up to noon. We would also like to see early evening hours such as 5 to sunset on Monday through Friday. Many residents can only get to the park after work, and allowing dog walkers during these hours would bring new life to the park. As you may or may not know, many in our group feel that in the past we have been unfairly blocked from participating in recreation facilities that are paid for with our taxes. We're very happy this issue is finally being addressed, and we look forward to working together as we move forward. Alan Richardson, Irvington Dog Owners Group. Next one is from Patrick Nattarelli. In my memo to the planning board during the continuing proposal proceedings, I noted that there are several properties with major development potential that will be key going forward to determine the village maintains a small town charm and character. They are the Fee property, Carafiello property, Abbott House, the Columbia University property, and the waterfront. The title of this was Comprehensive Plan Update. The Fee property now has a pending site plan before the planning board. Carafiello presented a single-family subdivision that was not well received by the planning board, and then the Brightview proposal, which has now been withdrawn. All of these proposals required zoning changes. The 2003 comprehensive plan did not make recommendations for future use of the Fee property, Abbott House, or Carafiello property, but rather assumed that their existing uses would continue. As we have seen, that is no longer the case. If you want to stop spending an inordinate amount of time responding to development proposals that can, in many cases, change or begin to change the character of the village, then we need to take an in-depth look at what it is that what we as a village want to see happen on these properties. We need to be proactive rather than reactive. Other communities in Westchester are taking the lead in developing plans to encourage the type and intensity of development they want. Tarrytown is studying their train station area and its connection with the rest of the village. White Plains is doing the same for their train station and Trans Center area. New Rochelle has a new downtown plan, and Larchmont has instituted a moratorium while it decides how to handle the subdivision of its larger estate properties. In my opinion, we do not need a complete master plan update, but rather a focused look at those properties or areas in the village where major change could or will likely occur. Some that come to mind with Carafiello property, Abbott House, Columbia University, the Astor Street area, the waterfront, and the Unification Church property. There may be others. As a community, we need to decide how we can maintain our small town character and charm if that is what we want. This can be done by instituting regulations that permit reasonable development that includes affordable housing, preserves truly historic structures, and does not overburden our existing infrastructure, services, and institutions. Now is the time to act before another developer tells us what they want. My suggestion is to form a committee and retain a consultant that would work with the public to make recommendations on the types and intensities of development that should be encouraged and what change would be needed to the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances to achieve the development we want. The committee would include a member of the Board of Trustees, the Planning Board, the Architecture Review Board, our Environmental Conservation Board, and other interested village residents, perhaps even past members of various boards. In this way, property owners and developers will know that if they want to get a project approved expeditiously, they will propose these types of developments identified in the plan, and those proposals that are not consistent with the plan will not be favorably received. Moratorium on development is in the subject areas can be adopted while the plan is being updated. If your board is interested in pursuing on the idea, both boards could meet to further discuss it.
I love it.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's actually, we've been talking about trying to look at the comprehensive plan in terms of figuring out, it's a little bit, recommendations are, I think, was every 5 to 7 years. Is it that short of time? Something that you're supposed to keep looking at it maybe it's a little longer, but anyways, the point is, this is would be a very focused and high-value way of, I don't know that it would be a complete solution to looking at updating the comprehensive plan, but it's certainly a critical area that we should maybe think about moving ahead of some of the other concerns that might not come out of it.
I think we're going to start, I think at our next work session, we're going to talk about goals, our annual goals, and I think maybe this is something that we can discuss as part of that process, because I think it is, we just went through Brightview, it's, I don't think any of us felt great about how that turned out, whether side of the ball you were on. And I think if we are proactive, we could save a lot of time in the future for the planning board, our board, and residents, frankly, if we kind of have that conversation now ahead of time, when there isn't a project pending that we have to, kind of react to. So.
Okay.
The next one is, there are 21 total, but I'm read first from Eric Oley. It has been about 5 weeks. It was pointed out by Michael Hanna that the speed limit sign in front of Town Hall was incorrect. The speed limit has been set at 15 miles per hour because it's a school zone. The school zone presently extends down Dearman Street to Ferris Street. Can I take down 24 mile per hour sign? I have a ratchet set and ladders, and I'm more incapable of doing this. Thanks, Eric Oley. Then there's 20 more that were along the veins of this one, and there was more than one signature on some of them, including the co-president of the Irvington PTSA. I'll read their letter. It has come to our attention that there is a 25 mile per hour speed limit sign posted in front of Village Hall on Main Street. As president of the Irvington PTSA, we ask that you please restore the proper speed limit of 15 miles per hour to Main Street from Dearman Street to North Ferris, Irvington designated school zone by the Irvington Board of Trustees. That's from Allison Vegasback and Cherry Wells, co-president of the Irvington PTSA. And then, as I say, there's 19 others that have a similar message, including from Gina Marr, my own wife, Pat Hanlon, there's a whole bunch, Catherine Kelly, the Balkans. I think the good news there is that the sign was taken down and the 15 mile per hour school zone sign has been put up. So,
Is the electronic sign, it's not programmed to flash yet, right? So it just shows the real speed.
Correct.
Yeah.
The flash is supposed at 25.
So I just wanted to say, as a side of that, the traffic committee has also been working on extended recommendations. There's a good number of them for various types of safety initiatives around the village. And in the context of the 15-mile-an-hour school zone, one of the things that we're going to hear about when they come to talk to us, June 15th, is that the date? I think Walter mentioned. I'm looking at you.
I don't think he scheduled the date yet, but I said, let me know when.
Oh, I thought he presented it as the work session in June.
Yeah, I offered that to him.
Okay. So anyways, the point is that in that, when we review some of the recommendations, one of them is to actually propose extending the school zone on Main Street to be the full length that's allowed by state law, which would actually extend it quite a bit further down the hill.
Okay. The next email is from Kerry Lyons, Dogs on a Leash pilot program. My name is Kerry Lyons, and I reside at 40 Barney Park at Irvington. I'm writing with regards to continuation of the Dogs on a Leash program at Mountstead Park. First and foremost, many thanks to Joe Archino and the Parks and Recreation Department for overseeing what I believe we can all agree was a very successful pilot program over the past 6+ weeks. My hope is that the pilot is just the tip of the iceberg as it relates to creating a more welcoming environment for dog owners in our village and our parks. So, unfortunately, can't be at the Board of Trustees meeting on May 2nd due to professional obligation. I'd like to share in writing the points I make if I were in person. I'd like to remind you all of a statistic I found stunning when I first heard it during the dog park discussion in the fall. There are 51 parks along the Hudson in our general vicinity. 50 of them allow dogs, one doesn't, until now with very limited access. That one stands out as a very own Matheson Park. It's time to join the 50 other parks and allow dogs in our park. The limited days and hours are a good start. It's time to consider more. Other surrounding villages, towns, and even New York City all provide a perfect proxy for people and pets peacefully coexisting in all parks at all hours. In fact, Central Park allowed dogs off leash prior to 9 a.m., no special permit required, no gatekeeper, and more often than that, no problem to report. I've repeatedly requested we consider this type of access, and I'm formally doing so again now. While the leash dog walking is a step in the right direction, it's just the first step in providing Irvington dog owners and taxpayers the same rights that our neighbors, both close and far afield, enjoy. While the spirit of the Dogs on Leash pilot program is positive overall, we have overcomplicated and in turn added expense and labor to something that is fundamentally very simple. We don't need signs, gate monitors, extra policing, or special trash cans, and I understand that in addition to new cans dedicated to bag dog excrement cause additional labor for the Parks and Rec Department. I'd like to offer a simple solution to ease the burden: remove those dog poop cans and simply have folks deposit the bag poop in existing garbage cans in the park, just as they do on Main Street, the Aqueduct, Halsey Pond, other areas. Even Central Park doesn't have dedicated poop cans, and I dare say neither do the other 50 parks in the Hudson. In closing, while there has recently been collaboration, the prevailing sentiment by the Park and Recs Department as it relates to dogs in Madison Park is that it is a privilege that needs to be carefully considered, earned, and bestowed upon good behavior. To the contrary, I believe that the ability to walk a dog in a park that we pay taxes to support, is not a privilege to be earned. It is a right, and a right that dog owners in this town are long overdue enjoying. Many thanks for your consideration, Carrie Lyons. I think that's it for correspondence. There's a lot there. This is the longest beginning of a meeting ever. We now open up for public comment. Please.
Good evening. My name is Linda Whitehead. I'm a resident of Irvington and a volunteer with the American Cancer Society. I wanted to just take a few minutes tonight to talk to you about the Relay for Life of the Quad Villages. Of course, the first thing is, why is it called Quad Villages and not Relay for Life of the River Towns? That was my first question. We were told there's a River Towns relay already somewhere else in New York. So it's uncomfortable for me to refer to it as Quad Villages, but that's the way we refer to it. The relay is scheduled to take place on Friday evening, May 20th, at starting opening ceremonies at 7 p.m. at the field at Mercy College. In the past, Mercy was the first site of a Relay for Life in Westchester County. This goes back probably 20 years. In more recent years, it's been done at Mercy as a college event. The American Cancer Society this year felt that they wanted to turn it into a community event. So it got a late start, but we're trying to build it up as a community event and involve all four: Hastings, Sudbury, Irvington, and Ardsley. We have a bunch of kids from Ardsley High School involved. We do have some Mercy College students involved. But we're trying to really bring in people from all four communities. Relay for Life is the biggest international fundraiser for cancer and the fight against cancer. There's Relay for Life, there's over 5,000 events that take place in 20 countries. It's not only about fundraising, it's about awareness. When you go to these events and you see people get involved and they learn about what it takes to fight cancer. And Relay's theme is called Celebrate, Remember, and Fight Back. And the idea is to celebrate survivors, remember those we've lost, and fight back against cancer. We start with a survivors and caregivers reception, which will be before the opening ceremonies from 5 to 7. We encourage and invite all survivors and caregivers to join us for that reception. We are asking local restaurants to donate food for that reception as well. Always looking for any kind of support we can get. Then we have the opening ceremonies, and then we open with a survivor's lap, where we ask all the survivors to take a lap around the track, and everybody cheers them on, and it's really fun and exciting. And there's some other things that go on during the event. There's a luminaria ceremony. For $10, you can purchase a luminaria, which is a white bag that will have a light put inside of it. And usually they get decorated in honor of someone who's fighting the disease or in memory of someone who we've lost. And at about 10 o'clock when it gets dark, those are put out around the track, and the lights are all turned down, and there's a very serious ceremony called the Hope Ceremony to honor and remember. And it's an amazing thing. Luminaria bags can be bought in advance or at the event for $10. So we want to invite you all to attend, invite the community to attend. You can also participate. It's not too late to start a team or join a team. We also need volunteers. We need volunteers the day of the event. We need volunteers to work at registration, to help with the survivors dinner, all of these things. So I do have flyers, and I'll leave these for you. There's a website on the flyers. There is a contact person for our staff partner at the American Cancer Society. I think you all have my email address as well, because I emailed you back when we were having our kickoff. You're welcome to contact me anytime to see if I got everything. I know I'm supposed to only have 3 minutes. Trying. Of course, I hit the night where you had the longest first part of your meeting ever. But I spend my career sitting at these meetings, so I know how it works. So I heard some talk tonight about bands and things like that for other events. We're looking for entertainment. Bands to come play, kids to come perform a dance act, anything like that, especially for the early part of the event, to come and entertain and even be part of the opening ceremony. So if anybody has any suggestions or ideas or know anybody who would like an opportunity, a band to play in front of the crowd for a half hour, an hour, we're always looking for that. As I said, this is a new event. We're trying to get it off the ground. We don't think it'll be huge this year. We're hoping it'll be bigger next year. But the more people we can get there, the better. So I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to leave these with you. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me, or the information is on flyers.
Is all the walk on the track, or is it on the aqueduct?
No, it's on the track. The event is going to be on the field that's right down by the river. So ideally, we'll have a beautiful evening. It's hard. This is an early event for Relay. More of them are in June, so we hope it's going to be nice and warm. Beautiful view of the river. So the walking is around the track. Now, technically, the idea of a Relay for Life is there's supposed to be one member from each team walking the track all night. And the event goes from 7 to 7. Whether someone really walks the track all night, we don't monitor that. And a lot of people don't even stay all night. But, you know, we encourage people to stay at least until the Luminaria ceremony, because it's really a very moving part of the program. So, any other questions?
Well, thanks for coming out. We'll make sure we posted it on Facebook and stuff. I think we did already. I saw it. I guess maybe you posted it to Village Bureau. I saw something on.
I was going to, and I'm not sure if I did yet.
Okay.
It's on 105.33.
Yeah, we're,
Okay, I'll pick it up over there.
Yeah, and
And I
just
have all the
feel free.
information.
Okay, and I'll send you an email tomorrow, so you have my information also.
Great.
And thank you
Well,
again,
thanks for
and I
sitting
hope
through
to see you all there.
all right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good luck. You have a public comment?
Good evening, it's Steve Schneider, 27 South Ecker. I'm here to talk about, just very quickly, about the Dogs on Leash project at Matheson. A big thank you to Joe Archino and Parker Rec and Dr. Lonke and the RPAC and the board and everybody letting this go forward. But I'm also wanted to just point out a big thank you to Alan Richardson and John Emmett, who's here with his daughter Anna. You know, really, they're the folks behind the Herb Dogs, which I think has accomplished a whole lot of good, more than just this program. Communication, I think that had a lot to do with, you pointed out about the people didn't know about licensing to Greenberg. I think that had a lot to do with educating and getting folks and dogs licensed. And I wonder what Greenberg is doing with all the revenues, and I don't know if it's enough to offset the assessment issue, maybe not. But anyway, and hopefully, and we'll talk more with Joe about it when the word gets out about the extension of the program. But I'm thinking just one thing, obviously, we're being very patient. I'm a big advocate of being in Matheson and that continuing with our dogs. But the folks, and we hear him say about the fact that now this is bringing it into summer months when there'll be more people there. We also want there to be more enrollees, and we need to convey, I'm going to suggest, or ask Joe if he can convey that message in a way. I think people are somewhat reluctant to sign up if they think it's just a very trial thing, and I guess it's kind of hard to say, to let folks know that it'll go beyond the 3 months, but I think we really will get more enrollers if more than the 40 early adopters, if we can kind of convey that, if successful, this should continue on past that. And I can't not repeat something just because it's commented so many times by folks who are down there walking their dogs and noticing, and we all know about the geese issue, but Joe's comment about the geese. heading back at 10:15. I look forward to a world maybe when dogs don't leave at 10 or 10:15 and the geese don't come back that way. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Steve, for all your work. Who else?
Hi, my name's Adam Kolker, and I live at 16 Barney Park. I just want to add my voice to some of those who've written and spoken about the dog park issue, and want to thank Joe for a very, very careful and well thought through project, and one that's got to balance a number of different constituencies, which is tough to do. I am one of those who signed up, who actually discovered through this that I had to license my dog. So he put me on the right side of the law there. I'm grateful for that. But I'm also one of those who, for my own work schedule reasons, find it very difficult to walk my dog Ian Matheson in the morning. I could in the evening. I'd love to be able to do that during the late spring and summer months. I understand the issues that make that complicated, and I really just wanted to back up one of the ideas, and I forget who brought it up, that this 3-month trial period, which I understand from Joe, at least in part, was presented as an advantage for those promoting access of dogs to the park, might be shortened to as little as 1 month. That would make it more possible if it were a successful trial. Two things. One, to get people to enjoy the summer months more, and two, if part of the objective of the trial is not just to see whether there are clashes between children and dogs, but also to see how many people care about this. If we open up the pilot project to people who can only walk their dogs in the evenings, we'll get a better sense of how many people in Irvington actually want this to happen, and at the same time be serving those people. So I just wanted to leave that thought with you.
Thank you.
My name is Karen Schatzel. I'm a resident of Half Moon South. It is my third residence here in Irvington since we moved here in 1968. And I'm just here because I want to express my disappointment at the vote of the majority of the board against the Brightview project. I recognize that it's a fait accompli after all this time, and like many other people, I had great concerns about their 2 earlier plans, which I felt were totally out of keeping with this village. However, the third plan that was presented, I felt was a very reasonable compromise, and my great disappointment and concern, which I have learned subsequently, is shared by many others who did not speak up in the village before, is that as presently zoned, as you all know, a developer could come in and put up 6 monstrous houses, carve out the whole hillside, and in addition to which, we will lose 3 handsome historic stone structures, and we've lost the opportunity to advance a little bit with affordable housing here in Irvington. So I'm sorry that the board has made that decision, and I hope it does not discourage other commercial property owners or developers to come into the village, because some sort of development is inevitable, as we know. But I think as long as this village is willing to control it, the type and the scope of it, I think we should face the fact that development is going to come to Irvington.
Thank you, Karen.
Anybody else? Move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions? Always nice to see Jimmy Softser back in the village. Need springs in the air. If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? All in favor? Public hearing to consider local law amending the insurance requirements for sidewalk cafes and sidewalk vending. I will make a motion to open the public hearing. Can I get a second? All in favor?
Larry is the one who asked for
Okay. Poor lad.
It's pretty straightforward. The board has had the sidewalk cafe and sidewalk vending law on the books for a few years. And at the time when that law was set, the insurance requirements were set to be a minimum of $3 million with per individual occurrence and an aggregate of $5 million. I've heard from a few merchants on Main Street that found that to be prohibitive. Some that decided not to go forward with the sidewalk cafe option, and others that did, a few. So it got me to look back a little bit. The reasons for setting the insurance limits as high as they were was the notion, and rightly so, that Main Street's not level. It is fairly sloped, certainly more in some places than others. And the thought was that, and of course the sidewalks aren't terribly wide, although we do have restrictions in the sidewalk cafe laws that it exists. But what we've seen in actual practice and what's been put out there has been very carefully done, thoughtfully done. There aren't particularly unusual hazards as a result of these cafes, and frankly, it was my sense that the board should be doing as much as they can to encourage these, as they've said when they first established this law, they wanted to see it used. So that was an impediment, in my opinion. Did a little, very brief amount of research with some other laws around the country, frankly. And limits varied for insurance from lower to $1 million to some that were slightly above $1 million. And it's my recommendation that you consider an insurance limit of $1 million for the property owner, for the cafe owner.
I think we appreciate this, Larry. I think we all feel that the outdoor cafes, even though we're on a fairly steep hill, have added, a lot of life into our downtown in the summer times. I think it's been good for the businesses because it obviously gives them more tables, and it's good for residents because they can sit outside in the sunshine, and if they're walking their dog, they can leave it outside of their table. But I think that it's a very positive thing. I think that we appreciate you doing the research to see that we might have been a little too conservative when we first enacted the law, and we're happy to kind of fix it today and become more competitive, and as well as hopefully get it utilized even more than it is.
Absolutely. As the unofficial downtown advocate, it's so exciting to see those. I take a lot of pictures looking down Main Street and seeing people sitting outside in the sunshine or in the moonlight is great. I guess maybe just to check, in terms of, Mary Ann, was there anything that you felt you needed to comment on this? No. Okay. Then I'm supportive of it.
Sounds like a common sense fix. That we took we wanted to be extremely careful to start, but it's worked out just fine, like the dog program might, and especially concerning that this is an onerous burden on business owners. We want to do this sort of thing.
Yep.
This is about as straightforward a legislative change as you can have, but we were open to public comment. Everybody has me?
Do you know what this might save on average? I don't even know what the writer might be, so.
Yeah, again, this is anecdotal. I didn't
Yeah.
do research directly with insurance agents, but what the common theme was that it was approximately $1,500 to $2,000. That was what was told to me independently by different businesses. So, if you're just putting out, a little table and a chair, that's probably not something you'd ever do. Maybe if it's more integral as part of your business, you might consider that. But the point is it still limits unnecessarily. In my
That's
opinion.
annual.
Yeah,
Premium.
for a rider.
Yeah.
To meet those limits. I mean, yeah, just for that feature, exactly.
Okay.
Very good. So I will.
Put an additional water for the dogs to get a discount. Right. Never mind.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, sorry? Aye. So resolved to adopt a local law amending the insurance requirements for sidewalk cafes and sidewalk vending. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Presentation of 2016 annual stormwater report. We usually fill them up for that.
This is about the time everyone should clear out of the room.
How many pages is this thing?
Yeah, no,
There's not
60.
pages.
We're not going through our page by
We are.
page.
You could do the
The high level?
Cliff Notes,
I
right?
have the Cliff Notes right here from last year, as a matter of fact. Okay, so you have a very lengthy report that's attached to this agenda. It's also available online. There's multiple years available online as well. And purpose of this report is that the village is an operator of a stormwater collection system, our storm drains, and that those waters that it collects empty into the waters of the United States, in other words, the Hudson River. So, in order for us to be able to do that, we need to have a permit granted to us by the state of New York. And in order to continue with that permit in good standing, we have to measure and take certain steps and then measure those results in 6 different areas. And I'll just quickly outline those areas. You can trust me that this report is broken down into 6 different sections. They're called minimum control measures. Those 6 different areas are covered here in a very, the word I like to use is very sterile manner. So I'm not going to go through it in detail, but I'll explain. So the first measure is something called public education and outreach. We have, we do very few direct mailings to homeowners these days, but we do plenty of emails, and many of them cover topics that are pertinent to stormwater control and pollution prevention. We do postings on Facebook and Twitter and other social media areas. We have public events from time to time, and it varies from year to year, but this report describes what may or may not have happened in the past year. We also do air periodically television commercials. I know our station's probably not very highly rated, but they are shown from time to time. We also encourage, as a second minimum measure, is public involvement. And so we have things like trail cleanup days. We had an Eagle Scout project recently that related to trail cleanup. Actually, this presentation, which I know you're hanging on my every word, is actually part of public involvement and participation, because we will open it up to the floor for the many comments you might receive, or ones that may come in afterwards. The third minimum measure involves illicit discharge detection and elimination. That is seeing where water flows, especially water flowing during a time when you wouldn't expect water to be flowing, because that could be a pollution, some sort of discharge. So we know where those outfalls are. We monitor them throughout the year, and we look during dry periods to see if there's anything flowing at a time when there shouldn't be. And we have a procedure in place, of course, contacting the building department, contacting the police department, who will bring in the right people to respond to that, whether it's us or whether it's Westchester County Health Department, and it goes from there. Fortunately, we haven't had anything significant to speak of. The remaining measures, the next 2, I should say, are related to building activity, construction site, stormwater control, runoff, the silt fences that you see at construction sites. Those are all measures that are undertaken by the building department and by the contractors that we enforce. And then there are also, after construction is complete, many of the developments that you'll see, and you see many of them around town, there are what are called best management practices, retention basins, detention ponds, that type of thing, wetlands, other areas that are used to control runoff, and those have to be maintained by people that own them. So we have a monitoring on that. And the last we got our own section here. Measure number 6 relates to stormwater management for municipal operations particularly. We measure the number of times that we clean out our catch basins. We measure, actually, we have about 500 catch basins. We clean them out at least once a year. Some are more problematic, and we clean them out even more often. We sweep our parking lots to make sure that the debris that accumulates in parking lots, and our streets for that matter, don't run off into the storm drains and pollute water from there. So there's a whole series of measures that we monitor and document in this annual report. So this report is available online. We could have hard copies available if you're really so inclined.
Here's one.
Yeah, exactly. And if there are any comments from anyone that about anything that pertaining to stormwater, that they can be sent to me. My name and email address and phone numbers on the website. There's a direct link right on the homepage of our website about stormwater particularly. And so those comments will be A, addressed, and B, documented and reported in this annual report. This report, after this meeting, and after any comments may come in, will be filed with the Department of Environmental Conservation by June 1st, and published on our website. We have a draft there, but the final will be published.
Thank you.
I can go on if you'd like.
It's very thorough.
I had a couple of questions, of course, I always do for you. I read this stuff. I have to make my annual comment about LELE is included, I suppose,
Yes.
as a...
They have been the training events, although there were less this last year, but yes.
And also as a methodology, because the Parks Department makes use of it.
Yep.
I was going to mention that I know that Joe's been working to try to get the rain gardens online, shall we speak, at the ONC, and that could probably be billed as well as a public educational type of thing.
Yeah.
If you haven't done it
Once
yet.
they're done, yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be outside of the year that we're reporting on,
Right.
so it'll be actually next year.
Okay, and then, actually, there is something going on right now. The bog gardens are taking water from the roof through rain barrels, so that's an actual demo that you could add, because it was in place last year.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, so two other things. One, I noticed that there's a stormwater survey, I think, that was GPTF put that together, or?
No, it was done as a consortium of communities. There was, but that was, I don't know that that's been available now for this past year. I think for part of it.
The problem is, I thought Judy Fremer was working on one as well that was going to come from the village.
Yeah, it
Didn't happen.
It wasn't incorporated as part of this. I have to go back and see what the timing of that was, but to see whether it was in this period.
Yeah, because I don't even remember, did it get to everyone, or I don't even remember what happened with that. Anyways, I was just sort of
Yeah.
refreshing
I
this.
think it was email, but I should have captured it, so it may have been the year before.
Yeah, okay.
So
And
I'll look.
the final thing is just kind of a generalized thing. I was reading through some stuff today, some email that was coming out, and it appears that there's a revision of the DEC Blue Book for best practices.
Okay.
You might want to just, if that's true, it's probably available online for complete, download, print out. But you might also alert Ed to that fact if he doesn't already know it.
Yeah.
I thought of one other thing that I think would count, maybe you already thought of this, but when Irv Dog did their clean up dog poop on the aqueduct, I mean,
That's a good one.
that should definitely count.
Yeah, it's the following year. This,
Okay,
the year ends, I think it's March 20th.
okay.
So since March 20th, around that time, we've been accumulating this information, but we're reporting on the year that ended in March.
Okay.
So, but that's a good one for next year. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an important one
I'll use
because
the full technical name. Is it PUP? Right?
PUP, yeah.
All right.
is that the runoffs and I mean, there's a whole lot of things that people, we really, I've been toying with that idea for a while. I think I'm gonna have to break down and do it. I saw some sample bookmarks that tell people about 5 or 6 major things you can do in your yard to help protect water quality and runoff. And picking up after your dog, but also things like not washing your car in the driveway. All those kinds of things are adding excessive load of, yes, phosphates or of waste into, basically directly to the Hudson.
Somebody puts little blue things on the catch basins sometimes, and it says this goes directly to the Hudson
Yeah.
River. Do we capture that?
Yeah, those have been past projects. They've been either Eagle Scout projects or other community
I
projects.
saw them recently.
Yeah, the county,
My neighborhood, River.
yeah, but they've been there for a while, so there hasn't,
Years.
yeah.
Time
What
to
about
refresh.
Riverkeeper is having a presentation tonight at the library? What if they're talking about this? Could that go in next year?
I'll find
Okay,
out what the
good.
agenda is, I don't remember.
It's funny, all I do is I always look to see if there's any illicit discharges. There weren't any this year.
No,
so I
yeah.
just wanted-
No,
not
It's like a
disappointed.
public
It's an exciting
education
part.
thing.
yeah.
It's the Historical Society organized it, but it is Riverkeeper.
I would love to see new blue medallions put on the little blue straight to the river, whatever. they call
I
it.
saw them recently added somewhere in my neighborhood that weren't there before, I think.
It may be the county, you know who may be doing it, actually? If I remember correctly, when they come around and put the larvicide, mosquito larvicide in the catch basins, I don't know if they do that, but they do that around this time of year. They may actually be doing that, the medallions, or refreshing them as that part of it.
Okay.
I've heard in the past.
I don't
anyway.
think my brain made this up. I'm pretty sure I remembered it.
Well, that would be a great project, for, as you said, for like a Eagle Scout or something to do that kind of stuff.
Okay, so much for
We have to make it.
good effort.
Put
We
this out
do,
there on
we
that
do
one.
what we're supposed to do.
But next, we have award a contract for tree removal, tree pruning, and stump grinding for 2016.
Did we actually pass the, yes, we did. Okay, forget it. Go ahead.
There's nothing to do on this stormwater.
Yeah, no, we don't have to, okay.
Said Leslie.
Yep.
Okay.
Go
So,
ahead. Sorry, Brian.
So the contract for tree removal, you can see the results there. We did a one unit, which is, a certain size crew for an 8-hour day. That's the unit that we bid out. We also did a unit for an emergency call out, and then the cost of stump grinding. So the unit prices is actually what's being approved here, but the estimated amounts on an annual basis are what's shown on this table here. So we are recommending a contract with the Care of Trees as the low bidder.
So, just so I'm making the assumption, this has nothing to do with a consulting arborist at all. This is just removals,
Correct.
right? So they're not making decisions in terms of health of a tree or something?
No, no. I mean, if they have a consulting arborist on staff, obviously we would use them for opinions or whatnot.
But don't we have a separate contract with
No, we never have. Not for consulting arborists. I think it's done
ad hoc?
gratis.
Oh, gratis.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, unless we ask for a written opinion, full, I mean, that's a whole different thing. That's pretty rare.
Okay, I'm good with it.
Well, that makes me happy that Care of Trees is the winner of the bid then, because I think that they have good support in terms of that kind of decision-making.
Do you know why Emerald Tree withdrew the bid?
No, they sent an email saying some circumstances had changed, and I don't know. We didn't ask for an explanation.
Any other questions? Whereas the old visitor received and opened on March 2nd, 2016 at 11 a.m. in Village Hall as follows. Just read the annual cost of one unit maybe. Care of Trees, $40,750. Withdrawn bid from Emerald Tree. Bartlett Tree Experts, $57,000. Elmstead Tree Shrub Lawn Care Company, $59,500. Cutting Edge Lawn Service, $68,200. Dean Dykeman Wicks Arborists, $71,875. And Kevin Downs Tree Services Company, $78,750. Whereas the village administrator has received the bid submitted and determined that the lowest bidder is in order in response to the specifications. Now therefore be it resolved that the village administrator is authorized to execute a purchase contract for tree removal, tree pruning, and stump grinding with the Care of Trees, Inc. for the unit prices specified. I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we have a truck, 2016 Ford F-250 XL Super Cab for the Irvington Rec Department. Any story on this? It's budgeted for this year, I assume, replacing an old one?
This is, I believe, Brenda, this is the one that's budgeted for the truck for rec department. This is actually budgeted for next year. This is the one we had to.
Surplus.
Right, so what we were planning on for next year was to have this be appropriate out of surplus, but the vehicle that they were using died. So we're bidding it a little bit early, but it truly is a timing difference because it's coming out of surplus regardless. It's not like we were gonna borrow for it and now we're not. It's not a change. So it would have been a surplus purchase next year. It'll be a surplus purchase this year, that's all.
Whereas sealed bids were received and opened on April 20th, 2016 at 11 a.m. at Village Hall as follows. All-American Ford, $30,907.55. Schultz Ford Lincoln, $32,150, whereas the village administrator reviewed the bid submitted, determined that the bid from the low bidder is in order in response to the specifications. Now therefore be it resolved that the clerk treasurer is authorized to execute a contract for the purchase of a 2016 Ford F-250 XL Super Cab 4x4, amount of $30,907.55 with the All-American Ford of Old Bridge, New Jersey. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second? All in favor? There was no state contract for that, I assume?
No.
Hence we had to bid it. Yeah. Award of contract 2016-11 for the purchase of stores hydrant adapters with caps for the hydrant connection retrofit project.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I'm going to ask that you table this.
Okay.
There's an issue between the two low bidders about whether the materials are American made or not. We did get some information from both of the two low bidders. And I don't think that we came to a final resolution. We hoped to by today, but I don't believe we did. So
Was that a requirement of the bid?
it was a requirement of the bid, and it's not just because we feel patriotic, but I think there have been concerns with this particular adapter that goes on the hydrants of some of the foreign-made items do not fit as well as they should, and the fire department's estimation was that was too mission critical to mess around with, so they did put that requirement in there. The low bidder, there was a question raised by the second low bidder, so we're trying to arbitrate that whole thing, and I don't think we're quite there yet.
Can I just ask what this adapter is about?
I don't think I can, other than it's a different,
There's
a standard connection
There's
style.
basically two standard connections. If you look at a fire hydrant, there's either New York City or what's the other one called? It's like National or something like that. And if we go to Dobbs Ferry right now, I think we have New York City and they have National and vice versa. We can't just hook up our equipment to this. We need to have an adapter. So I'm guessing we're all going standard as one way or the other.
yeah, I'm not sure which.
So I'm not sure which way it is.
And we're not having to replace our fire plugs.
That's right. Instead of replacing all the fire hydrants, I'm guessing going forward, they'll probably replace them with
Over
standard.
time, yeah.
But it's really bad when it's your next door neighbor because that's your most likely place you're gonna go other than your own village house. So, you have to carry, adapters that you put on the fly, but it's better not to have to do that. This is obviously
Less time consuming. So we'll pull this for tonight and then reconsider it at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Approval of grant application for the Hudson River Valley Greenway.
This is a fairly simple one. We did submit for a very small grant in the neighborhood of about $10,000, a little less, back in the fall for the purchase of some benches and some additional street furniture, yet to be determined, consistent with the Main Streetscape plan. We were not granted any money back in the fall from the Hudson River Greenway. We are trying to resubmit a slightly different program within the Hudson River Valley Greenway, but it's a similar program. So we're going to look to resubmit something on that. It's going to be on the order of $10,000 most likely.
For the same thing?
Yeah. So we're trying to nibble off bits and pieces here and there when we can.
Sounds good.
So there's an authorization that we need. The grant's not being submitted until a couple more weeks into May, And you'll all get copies of the final, of course, but I just need an authorization now because we don't meet again.
Okay. Whereas,
No, I was gonna say second.
whereas the Village of Irvington is applying to the Hudson River Valley Greenway for a grant under the 2016 Greenway Compact Grant Program for the project entitled Enhancements of Scenic and Recreational Resources to be located in the Village of Irvington. And whereas the grant application requires the applicant municipality to obtain the approval and endorsement of the governing body of the municipality in which the project will be located, whereas the village will provide a match equal to at least 50% of the total project cost, whereas the project is a Type 2 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, thus requiring no further environmental review, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby does approve and endorse the application for a grant of the 2016 Hudson Valley Greenway Compact Grant Program for a project known as Main Street Streetscape and located on Main Street, Irvington, within this community. I will make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Designation of an independent auditor. Some good news here, Brendan?
Yes, Jim. We're entering into a new 5-year contract with our existing auditor. We've been very satisfied with them, and they also appreciate our business. And basically, they agreed, we negotiated some items to consolidate some of their timeframes here and still accomplish the audit in the same manner. And they're going to be freezing the prices for the 5 years back to the 2011 price.
Nice.
So that was very nice. And we went out and we did seek other, competitive bids. That was part of the so we're pleased with the outcome of it.
Good job, Brenda.
Always good to find a little savings.
Just note on this looks like a very comprehensive plan, just since this is a letter of agreement under first paragraph under order of objectives, it just has 2010 instead of 2020. For the fifth, the final year.
Okay, we have a very good turn.
Good for you. Ken Bernstein used to pick up those things.
We'll fix that, okay.
So it's the first page of the
Yep,
okay.
16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, on the first page. I went right to the,
It said audit objective.
Yeah, no doubt.
You got it, okay.
I'll have them find out.
Resolved to designate the firm of O'Connors Davies LLP of Harrison, New York as official independent auditor of the Village of Irvington and authorize the clerk treasurer to execute a letter of engagement. I'll make the motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Reports of board, standing committees and officers. Trustee liaison reports. Mr. Gilliland.
I'm trying to go through my brain. I know the tree commission's meeting is tomorrow, 7:15. I'm pretty sure it's in the library. They are, amongst handling a range of permits, they're also talking about recommendations for street tree replanting. This is in areas where trees were removed around the village by DPW. They have a certain amount of money in the budget to go back in and plant to restore after the removal. So these are along, basically along, not so much Main Street, but along a lot of the other roads. So they're talking about that, coming up with a recommendation as to what species to put where, which is going to be helpful. And then I already mentioned from the traffic committee, the Walk Safe Irvington public service announcement video contest, which will have more information sent out as soon as all the details get finalized.
Since Christina's not here, I have a quick Recreation and Parks Department. Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee, RPAC, will be meeting on Wednesday, May 18th at 7:30 at the Senior Center. The FACE Committee is meeting Wednesday, May 4th at 7:30 p.m. at the Senior Center. The Community Advisory Board will be meeting on Tuesday, May 10th at 8 a.m. at the Senior Center. Last Chance Early Bird Camp registration will be on Saturday, May 7th. Please take advantage of the early bird rates. Contact Maureen DePauli for more information. The registration for 2016 Teenscape Summer Travel Camp is ongoing. Please contact Angela Thornton for additional information on dates and fees and what we have planned for our teens this summer. 2016 Village Park passes are available. Proof of residency is required.
Night hours will be available on Wednesday, May 18th from 5 to 7 p.m. I think we had the rest of these already. That's it. All those other events have been detailed already. Refer to the beginning of the meeting.
Tomorrow night, 7 PM, the Housing Committee will meet. I will meet with them, the Tiffany Room. And I'd point out that Brian and I both attended the last Thursday, and there are 2 more of these. And some people are saying they aren't getting the emails anymore, but in fact, they're still happening. So there'll be one in May. You can figure out the date, whatever is the 3rd Thursday. They're 5:30 to 7:30. It was a very interesting program with a local author and a local artist, actually the same artist that's on here. And I encourage people to go. It's a good way to network and meet people and eat and drink. That's all. You already announced the theater, which I'm absolutely encourage people to go on Friday night to these independent filmmaker short films. They're just really interesting. You'll love some, you'll hate some. It's really fun to think, like, which one do you like best, and who didn't like it, and why they didn't. Anyway, that's it.
The water department has been doing their water department thing and reading meters, and it's now summertime, so they're turning the water on at the senior garden and the boat club, as well as they're continuing to flush fire hydrants. The highway department activities, assisting the nature center with the preparation of rain gardens, preparing equipment for spring and summer, filling potholes goes on. This is when line and crosswalk painting gets done. You've heard about cleaning the catch basins when we were talking about the stormwater report. In fact, there are 654 catch basins and manholes throughout the village, and they all need to be cleaned on a regular basis. So this department keeps on going. Spring maintenance of village-owned adjacent right-of-ways and assisting RAC as usual. All of our departments work together with picking up brush at Halsey's Pond. Also, there were a few of us who were there for a tree planting. DPW was there as well. Mark was holding a shovel when I finally found the tree in question, but there was a new dogwood on Astor Place.
A nice red dog, pink dogwood, rhubarb. Yeah.
Very nice. Green Policy Task Force, their name have been mentioned a few times this evening. They have been active in stormwater management activities, the microgrid, and a very big push on recycling, particularly recycling in our schools. They always welcome new members, so please keep that in mind. And at the Greenberg Nature Center this Thursday at 7:30, there will be a film, Sustaining the Place, creating new Hudson River landscapes. That's a film, and the filmmaker will be there, Rick Scarce. And finally, just a note about the library. There was a collection to establish a memorial garden in honor of Pam Straken, the recently deceased director. And when I went to the website, they were already over what they had hoped to, which is very good.
Are they still collecting?
They didn't close it, so
Yeah, okay.
plant more flowers.
Village Administrator's report.
We're having a design meeting for the Aqueduct Crossing project. It's Thursday, May 12th at 3:30 in the afternoon, for anyone that's interested and on the board. But we'll have a good chance to look over the plans that our designers have put together. That's it.
It's 3:30, you said.
3:30 on May 12th.
And people invited to it or not?
It's an internal, team meeting, but certainly, a couple of board members could be there. So, feel free.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they're coming in with.
Yeah, well, I have plans upstairs, and I can send you electronic if you'd like.
Next is Village Clerk Treasurer report.
Well, it's a busy time of year, getting ready to send out tax bills shortly, opening the lockbox, things associated with that. We also, along the lines of cost savings, we also renegotiated with our current dental provider to lower the premium by 15%. So that was very welcome, and hadn't they done something, I think it would have left the provider, so it worked out very well. It was a win-win. Lastly, it's been about 5 months since we implemented the water ACH program, which is the automatic debiting for our customers. That's gone quite smoothly, and we see more and more people sign up for that. Tomorrow we'll be demoing, looking at another water program. So we'll report back how that looks, but we've been requesting the things that the board's been looking for, like graphs on the back of the bill and online portal. So we'll let you know how it goes.
And the village attorney's report.
No report.
Public comment.
I thought of something that we didn't mention.
All right.
Am I the public?
Sure.
We got another great grant. I think Larry sent out a message to everybody from the, we call it the Theater District Grant. Larry, did that go out to everybody about the grant? Yeah, just to us. Okay, so are we allowed to tell people? Okay. We got a really nice
It was in
grant.
the newspaper last week.
Oh, that's what I thought.
It was in the paper.
Right, it's in the paper. So this is to make improvements right here around Village Hall and towards the entrance to the theater. And it's a very significant amount of money.
Agreed.
And do you know when that money comes forward to us, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much, anytime we want to spend it. The problem is that even if we have a design.
We've got scaffolding.
We have scaffolding in the way right now, so it will not be this summer. But we have, I believe, 3 years to spend it, and I'm sure it'll be spent next summer. So,
Very nice accomplishment. And kudos to Connie, who did a huge amount of work making this happen.
Grants. Thanks.
Any additional public comment? Otherwise, review of current action items? I don't really have anything. I don't have a list. Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session regarding a real estate transaction. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.